Hi everyone, hope you're all well. It's Wayne here, also known as ThePlantaholic. It's the 22nd of November 2020 and we're well into autumn now, heading for winter, and it's a glorious day. As you can see, the glorious grasses and hedychium there are lit up in the sun with the lovely native English oak, Quercus robur behind. And although it's a lovely time of the year, you could say it's probably the messiest time of the year in my exotic garden, and that's because obviously there's all the leaf litter on the floor. A lot of stuff is looking past its best, and it does look quite uncared for, but I do like to leave the garden a bit wild for the winter to benefit the wildlife. The leaf litter encourages wildlife to hibernate and shelter from the worst of the cold, and also the seed heads on the grasses, such as the Stipa gigantea here, obviously feed the native birds during the winter months. It's recently changed its name to Celtica gigantea now, but this flowered back in June, and you can see that the seed heads here move lovely in the breeze, and it looks fantastic when frosted during the winter. So I normally cut this back in February time, maybe March, when all of these flowering stems have been snapped by the winds and the rain and the snow of the winter. But yeah, moving on to this hedychium here, you can see that it is dying back now. This is completely hardy. These stems obviously all dying back, all the goodness from the stems is going back into the rhizomes now. But you know, it's lovely still, lit up by the sun, these yellow leaves, and soon the sort of bright orange stems will die right back to the base, and they'll just fall off by themselves, and then obviously I'll add those to the compost heap. This grass here, which is lit up by the sun, is Panicum northwind, completely hardy again, just like the Stipa and the hedychium, and it's a clumping grass, it doesn't spread, so it's just like the Stipa, and it looks absolutely glorious. It's really good, as you can see, to add vertical structure to a garden. Also got another grass here, Stipa tenuissima, which is very, very delicate. Obviously again, it's past its best now, but it's very, very fluffy grass, beautiful seed heads. There's Rudbeckia here again. I leave these seed heads on for the birds during the winter time. It adds a bit of winter structure in the garden. So those are called black-eyed Susans. And then the heleniums, again I'll leave those on there now until those spent flower heads on until late winter. Let the birds eat them. So things like goldfinches and greenfinches, sparrows and other birds will feed on those. So yeah, you can see there's a lot of leaf litter lying around from the oak. Rather than get them up on a regular basis, I like to leave them lying on the floor until the last of the leaves have fell, and then I clear them off the paths, and I clear them off the lawn at the bottom here. So you may not have seen this part of my garden. This is part of the garden which is not an exotic garden. It's more sort of traditional, and it's more sort of cottagey garden on this side with a woodlandy bit at the bottom. But you can see here there's some skimmias, which I've set the flower buds already for next spring. So this will be in flower in April. Highly scented white flowers. You can see these gorgeous red buds waiting now. Obviously it's evergreen, loves acid soil, which I've got here, so I'm quite lucky. And next to that is another plant which likes the same conditions, another evergreen shrub, Pieris. And again, you can see that the flower buds have already set, and again they'll wait for the warm spring weather to come in April before they open. One fantastic evergreen which is in flower now, which can be used in an exotic garden, completely hardy. This is gorgeous Mahonia. This is Mahonia, or they've recently changed the name to Berberis now. Berberis Lionel Fortescue is the cultivar name. You can see those glorious bright yellow upright flowers, highly scented, and then when pollinated by bees and other insects, they turn into black fruits known as Oregon grapes, which the blackbirds love. But yeah, look at those flowers in the end of November now, and absolutely glorious. One of my favourite shrubs. It just looks so exotic, the foliage does as well, so it's just fantastic to have them in any exotic garden. Yeah, love them. Yeah, so you can see a hell of a lot of leaf litter on the grass, but like I say, as soon as my oak tree here has finished dropping off all the leaves, which should be in the next week now. Fantastic tree, the tree of England, Quercus robur, and the amount of acorns we've had off it this year is absolutely wonderful for the jays, the squirrels, and many other wildlife. Yeah, so this is the bottom of my garden. It's where my compost bins, where I put all my garden rubbish and kitchen scraps. I've got 3 of those bins, and then also I put leaf mould from these oak leaves into black bags, pierce them at the bottom for drainage, water them well, tie them up, and within a year, 18 months, you get fantastic leaf mould. Oak and beech leaves are the best for making leaf mould. You can add that to composts, you can use it as a soil conditioner in the garden. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So down here we've got some hellebores. Those obviously flower in the winter time. Obviously evergreen leaves. Lovely fern there, Drypteris the king, the Finis the king, which again evergreen, and I cut all the foliage down at the end of April, beginning of May, just as the new fronds start to unfurl. Got a camellia there that will flower in January, February time, and I've got my Betula Silver Shadow, which is one of my favourite trees also. Certainly one of my favourite ornamental non-native trees. Gorgeous white bark. I've only had that for 3 or 4 years now, so obviously the trunk is only just starting to thicken up, and it's just starting to get whiter after the bark's peeled off it. A much underused, underrated evergreen shrub there, variegated, is Rhamnus alaterna argento variegatus. And yeah, it just adds a splash of brightness to a dark corner, which is this is north facing, right at the very, very bottom corner of the garden. My Acer Ozakazuki, which has been fantastic, is bare now, as you can see. It's one of the best for autumn colour, bright red foliage then in October. But behind that there is an evergreen succulent, and this is in deep shade, and yet it loves it. It's fine, it just overwinters through the hardest winters. And this is Sedum prealtum. You can literally just take a few leaves off, chuck them on the floor, and they'll grow by themselves. It has bright yellow flowers in June, which are much loved by bees. And yeah, it's from Mexico in the wild, and it's just a very underrated hardy succulents that most people haven't heard of, which I find amazing. So like I say, it is the messiest time of the year in my garden anyway, but I do like to leave it a little bit ragged for the wildlife. See some cornus, winter stems here, that look great in the snow. Also look good lit up in the sun. My Pittosporum County Park Dwarf is one of my favourite shrubs because it's evergreen, has purple foliage, it works well with most other plants. It always keeps compact, don't have to do any work to it at all, and it's fantastic. My Russ is finished now, as you can see. This is called Tiger Eyes. It's lost all of its foliage now for the winter. And my Solidago or Goldenrod Fireworks was great in September, October with arching sprays of yellow flowers. But again, that's finished now. And I'm going to leave the seed heads on again for the birds. I've got an Acuba crotonifolia there, which I'll plant at some stage to add some more evergreen structure. Behind that there I've got an Itea ilicifolia, which has hanging flowers in July, August of honey scented flowers. And then this hanging basket here, to most people's amazement, I've got this pretty hardy bromeliad called Bilbergia and the Bilbergia nutans, or also known as Queen's Tears, and I found this to be completely hardy. It's been outside for 5 years now, doesn't mind the cold, and this year I planted it in this hanging basket for the first time and it's grown really well, so I'm hoping it's going to flower very well next summer. Another fantastic evergreen plant for any exotic garden during the colder months is Fatsia japonica. In most parts of the UK this is hardy. 30 years ago or so, when it first came out, people were saying how tender it was, but it's gone through many cold winters. Okay, the top growth might be cut back a little bit, but it always comes back from the base, and it looks so exotic with those leathery, glossy, big leaves, almost getting on towards a monstera sort of leaf. That's the underside, and quite often it does flower this time of the year, October, November, with white clustered flowers followed by black fruits. In this hanging basket here I've got a Gesneriad type plant in the Gesneriaceae family. This is Mitraria coccinea, and it's evergreen and it's hardy in a sheltered spot. I found it hardy for me, so just like that Bilbergia nutans that you just saw, it likes a bit of shade. It's great in a hanging basket. It flowered all summer for me, and it's still got a few flowers now. The furry flowers, can't really see it on here, but yeah, they're not smooth, they're a little bit on the furry side, so it's related to Streptocarpus. Another fantastic evergreen for exotic gardens are cordylines. Most winters these are hardy in the UK, it's just the very severe ones that they're not. You can see this one's called Red Star, and it's a lovely colour. I've got Tetrapanax papyrifera rex still looking good, and my tree dahlias are still outside, so I'm going to risk it, leave them out for the winter. Hopefully it's a mild one, and they're getting quite big plants now. Got a good woody stem at the base, so I hope the root systems have gone quite deep, and if they're cut back they'll come back from the ground no problem at all. The Impatiens tinctoria is still in flower, amazingly. So yeah, 22nd of November, and they're still in flower. And this survived the winter last year, didn't cover it at all, just dived back to the ground, and up back it came again. I've got another cordline down there. That's burgundy spire, and that will look stunning when it gets taller. Of course, cordylines will grow into sort of tree-like plants eventually. Over the years, they do form a good trunk. It's my Schefflera Taiwaniana, it's looking really good. Evergreen and pretty hardy. Had that for a few years now. Still got my cordyline pink passion outside, but if it gets really cold I'll bring it in. I think the cold we've had so far is about -1, so it doesn't mind conditions that sort of cold. If it goes below -5, then obviously I'll have to bring it in. Trachycarpus wagnerianus, completely hardy, so I don't have to worry about that. I'm leaving that outside for the winter. Eucalyptus gunnii, completely hardy for us in the UK, and my Acacia dealbata, alpina. Got all the flower buds waiting now for the winter, so that'll flower in January, February. It's going to be the best winter yet, and that's in flower. Salvia hot lips is still in flower. We find that pretty hardy in the UK. Alstroemeria, Indian summer, still in bloom. Melianthus major, still looking great, with its peanut scented foliage. Gorgeous with these water droplets on the leaf too. Canna Cleopatra, still got flower buds on, but obviously it won't really flower now. The sun's not warm enough to open them. But I'm going to leave all my cannas outside, including the Singapore girl at the back there. I'm going to leave my Yucca elephantiasis outside again, risk it. It's about 9 feet tall now. It came through the last couple of winters. A beauty lawn there, Millerai, still flowering as you can see. These cannas I'm going to leave outside. Canna tropicana. Musa Basju, which I haven't wrapped yet, but I might do soon. It hasn't quite been cold enough to wrap, so I like to leave it as late as I can. Dahlia, Bishop of Llandaff, and Canora Sunset, looking a bit ropey at this time of the year, but I'm going to leave those outside for the winter, like I did last year, and they come back no problem. Same with the Royal Bumble and the Salvia Amistad, which is still looking quite good at the back there. I'll leave my Canna striata outside, and my Canna Australia, which looks still looking amazing for late November. Got my variegated yucca there, which of course is evergreen and completely hardy. I had that in my last garden and brought it with me. Fantastic structure for a winter garden. Another panicum here, which is Panicum squaw. You can see the leaves look like they've been dipped in red paint. Completely hardy. Looks great next to the Bishop of Llandaff Dahlia, Canna Australia, and the variegated yucca. Oh, and there's a Butia, a reef of Spaffa palm there, just getting its roots down. Once it does, it will start to grow a good sized trunk for me, fingers crossed. But yeah, who would have thought it was late November. Got some self-sown Euphorbia Wolfenii there, and those will flower in the spring, in April time. You can see the flowers there are just forming in there now. Yeah, and there's just obviously my palms now on the decking, still looking good. So Beauty Odorata, still looking great. Briar Armata, my Sonchus I've left outside. Had a few aphids on them, so I thought I'd leave them out in the cold weather to try and kill them off before bringing them in. And my Trichelospermum jasminoides, just like every winter, has gone bright red, as you can see. Absolutely fantastic glossy red foliage at this for the winter time. And I notice it only does this if you keep it in pots for the winter. I think it's just the stress that does it. If you plant them in the ground, even in the winter, the leaves don't colour up as much, they can stay completely green. So I recommend that you always plant it in a pot, really, if you want that glorious colour. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video, guys. So take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye.